Hello, this is Girly Vines, and I'm responding to Inmendham's What the Fuck, number 551, entitled Do Not Invite Disaster. I just had to check that on my phone. Yeah, this is my first time doing a philosophy type response video to the almighty Inmendham, who I admire very much. I've been watching your videos for a while. I agree with your antinatalist and ethlist philosophy. Your physics videos are interesting. I can't say that I am as well versed in physics as you are, but it's interesting. I've learned a lot from those videos. Videos involved that talk about the inherent suffering and the experience of life. Yes, I relate to all of those videos. This is a response video to this particular episode of Inmendham's because he's saying throughout the video to not invite risk. Why would you have a child and invite that kind of risk of the potential horror and blight and overall shit show that can potentially happen and will inevitably happen as one grows older in life. All of the slings and arrows and aches and pains that one can incur that comes from just simply being unlucky in life. I totally agree with I agree with all of that. I think that I agree that life is full of a lot of torturous moments that are not to be underestimated. I totally agree that I consider myself to be an antinatalist. I think that even an ethlist in the sense that I think that the life, that there's suffering in animal life as well, and just the replication of the DNA molecule for the sake of replication is not enough of a great thing for there to be as much suffering. The suffering outweighs the replication of the DNA molecule. So I agree with all of that. To basically sum up a lot of what I've gotten out of Inmendham's videos, I agree. With that said, here's my big but, is that I'm having a child with my wife. This is a recent thing, and I've seen all your videos prior to this and have agreed, and I'm still watching your videos, and I nod my head. I'm like, yes, I totally agree. Bringing somebody into this world is a huge risk. And undoubtedly there will be trials and tribulations that we will face as parents, and the child may face trials and tribulations. They inevitably will, and there's sort of that logic gap there. And it's an interesting phenomenon in my own mind, because I totally agree with you. And I know that I can see you saying, oh, well, I'm glib and I'm a nihilist and I don't care. But really, I feel that the antinatalist videos that not only you have made, I can't remember her name. Oh, man. I think her name's Amy. She makes all the cool the cool little sets, and she was on the she was on that show, that comedian show. I can't remember her name. Anyways, the other videos that I've seen have been very inspirational and have taught me that this life is to be taken seriously, um, because there's so much at stake, and I feel like, on a positive note, I will definitely take my role as a parent very seriously, considering the consequences that could potentially occur from having a child. I think that, it makes me want to be a better parent, because I don't want to be one of those parents that you that you have no respect for. I always kind of think, well, what would Inmendham do? And Inmendham would probably, you would not have a kid. You just wouldn't do it. But I would think, before I enter a kid, I would not have my child taking hang gliding lessons. But I would want them to take karate, right? So they would learn self-defense and discipline. Would I want them to bungee jump? At a certain age, once they hit 18, that's their choice to make. But before then, I would strongly advise against bungee jumping, because there's a huge risk incurred with that. I would try to mold their brain to be the best person they can be, because I know that there are so many parents out there that are filling their children's brains with lots of glib, nihilistic, religious information. And so, yeah, there's all of that. And I'm a little bit nervous saying this, because I know that you have little patience for us breeders, us breeding types, and we're still early on in the pregnancy. So I mean, it's a risk. Bad things could still happen, and we're anxious. Believe me, man, we're totally anxious about what's going to happen, because we don't know. Could something bad happen and it affect our relationship? Anything could happen. And that leads me to kind of the next point I wanted to come to, is that risk is, even if you don't have a kid, I think that risk is, and I know you know this, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but it's just unavoidable. Just living, just being, and even as somebody who agrees with you and watches your videos, I still decided to take that risk. Now, I still took the chance. My wife even, she's not as into the full YouTube philosophy scene as I am, and I'm just now getting into it myself. But she likes your philosophy. She thinks you're a little caustic at times, but it's just, you never know what's going to happen, and that's kind of one of those curveballs. And even as a determinist, I'm a determinist, and I think the antinatalist movement is very important, and I think that people, especially these millennials, and then whatever this new generation that's coming up after the millennials, they're not having kids. A lot of them aren't having kids. A lot of them aren't even, I don't even think, having sex. I think they're just, I don't know. From what I understand, a lot of kids are just like playing video games or whatever these days, which is probably good. there's not a whole lot of risk in playing video games except like carpal tunnel syndrome, or I guess there's like now an addiction associated to having playing video games. Um, but or I guess you could just gain a lot of weight, because you don't get enough exercise. But there's like Pokemon Go, so you can I actually see people in the park walking around on their Pokemon Go doing this thing on their cell phones. But yeah, I think the antinatalist movement is good for it. I think that it is inspiring people to not have kids, but it's probably kind of already preaching to the choir. It's already, I think the people that seek out the antinatalist movement have already probably come to that conclusion, because I know that I did. Whenever I was watching YouTube videos, I was looking for confirmation bias, and I got on YouTube, and I don't remember what I put in, or I think I came up with the term antinatalist after watching True Detective. I think that was like the first thing that sort of led me down that. I think that's the first thing that led a lot of people down that road. When the character Russ Cole was talking about, the hubris that it takes to pull a human soul from non-existence and put it into this thresher, this meat grinder, or whatever. And it does take a lot of hubris. And humans are very hubristic animals. I mean, that's just kind of, it comes with the consciousness. Now, I know that sounds glib, that sounds nihilistic, but that's also another thing about humans, is that we're not perfect. We're not purely ethical beings. I know that I'm not. I've never claimed to be. I've always thought that it was best to try to be ethical with the simple do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But I don't even do that. I don't do that. Like Louis C.K. once said, I have all these things that I believe, but I don't really do any of them. And I do some of the things that I believe. And I think that it's more complex than me just having these cut and dry beliefs and then me following through with that. I think that I have this kind of compass that more or less kind of goes along with these different ideas. And since I am sort of amorphous when it comes to ideas, I don't just like cling on to ideas for dear life. I kind of go with the flow, and as the mood hits me, kind of like it did whenever I had we decided to have a child. I kind of just went with that. I kind of was like, yeah, I'm an antinatalist. Yeah, I think that a majority of people shouldn't have kids, but I'm going to excuse myself from that. Me and my hubris is going to excuse myself from that group of people that shouldn't do it. And suddenly we are the people that should, although there are probably a lot of, I'm sure some people that know me would probably think that I shouldn't have kids. Maybe they think I don't have enough money, or they don't think that I am smart enough or strong enough or whatever. But I'm doing it, and I hope to do it very well, and I hope to be thoughtful. I hope to raise a child keep that child safe, and teach them to be a substantial contributor to society, and not just be somebody that plays video games, and be somebody that does cure cancer as like one of, like what would Inmendham want, right? He would want somebody that is out there curing cancer, out there, working in a hospital, out there basically taking care of all of the suffering that is inevitably going to be there. So yeah, no, I think that to reiterate it's crazy that I agree with you, and that I think that the anti-natalist movement, I think that it's an influential, and I think that it should just people should keep doing what they're doing. I might even make a video pro antinatalist in the future, or ethalist. I'm on your side, but I'm still doing it. And as a determinist, that compulsion won. It took over the logic. It took over, all the things that I still know that are in the forefront of my brain. That compulsion is still there, and I'm hoping that all the things that I've learned from that will help guide me to be a better parent and bring somebody into this world the right way. So yeah, and with that said, in terms of the end game, I think that's the best you can hope for, is because people are always going to have kids. Even when it's like a Walking Dead scenario and there are zombies, even like that's why I stopped watching the show The Walking Dead, was because that character Glenn, who ended up dying. Sorry to ruin it for anybody, but ended up dying in the show. Like, he had a kid. He brought a kid into a world of zombies in a post-apocalyptic world. He still thought it was a good thing to do, even though the world was absolute shit and pure misery. He was like, oh, we've got to bring this new light of hope into the world. So, because why else are we doing that? And, I tell myself, as somebody watching that show, if I were living in a world full of zombies, I'd probably off myself. And arguably, we are living in a world filled with zombies, with all sorts of chaos, and Trump is president, and people can't even interact face to face. They use their phones for obnoxious reasons. They're addicted to technology, and there's all sorts of things to complain about. But I exist, and I'm here, and part of my animal programming is to adapt to whatever scene emerges. And in a lot of ways, I'm just sort of following my animal programming, and try not to be too anxious about it. So anyways, Inmendham, hopefully I am interested to hear your response to what I have said. I'm a little nervous because I know that you're unforgiving, but you're a good guy. I know you're a good guy. I've seen, you take care of animals. Got a beautiful garden. All right, signing off. It's Girly Vines, not my real name. Signing off.